Welcome to the NTA Training Video Series. This video is intended to help you prepare for the B1 Residential Building Inspector exam. It contains study tips, sample questions, and examples of how to apply your knowledge in the field. To start preparation for your B1 Residential Building Inspector exam, you need to know what materials are appropriate for studying. A good place to look is the ICC website. This is the same website used to register for the exam. Go to www.iccsafe.org. Once you are there, hover over Education and Certification and go to the second column, Certification and Testing. Click the arrow next to Certification Exams, and a new drop-down will appear. Click the National Exam Info and Registration link. Then scroll down to the National Certifications Categories list and click on the plus sign to the right of the Residential Inspector category. Once Residential Inspector is expanded, you will see various exams listed. Find Residential Building Inspector B1 and select Bulletin CBT. The document shown here gives a breakdown of each exam and the materials which should be used for reference when taking the exam. The material you will need to study is the 2015 International Residential Code. Once you have obtained the appropriate reference materials, you need to get familiar with the books. Use the table of contents in the 2015 IRC to locate chapters 1 through 10. These are the chapters that cover the building section that you will need to concentrate on to study for the B1 exam. Begin reading these chapters starting with 1 and work your way to chapter 10, reading for about 15 to 30 minutes at a time. Keep in mind that the exams are an open book test, so after reading through these chapters, it's a good idea to go back and skim the text again to get familiar with the section numbers and titles. The goal is to be able to quickly identify what section you are looking for to answer the question, not to memorize the entire code. The B1 exam has 60 questions, and you will have 2 hours to complete it. Now we will look at some sample questions to demonstrate ways to quickly identify keywords that will help you find the code section with the correct answer. The table of contents and index can be helpful tools to locate the appropriate section. It's also a good idea to create tabs for your books, so you'll be able to flip to pages quickly. The following are example questions from chapters 1 through 10. Practice using keywords within the question to try and find the correct code section in the index, unless you already know where to find the correct answer. For on-site construction, from time to time, the blank, upon notification from the blank holder or his agent, shall make or cause to be made any necessary inspections, and shall either approve that portion of the construction as complete, or shall notify the blank holder or his or her agent wherein the same fails to comply with this code. This question has to do with inspections. Look in the index for the keyword inspection, and you will see various types of inspections are listed. Other words within the question should help you narrow down your options, such as on-site. This will lead you to section R109.1. Once you locate this section in Chapter 1, read the paragraph to find the words to fill in the blanks. The words that will be found to complete this passage are building official and permit from section R109.1 of the 2015 IRC. This picture shows a foundation being constructed. A foundation inspection is one of the inspections a code official would complete once notified by the permit holder. These pictures show rough framing and plumbing you may see in a manufacturing facility during a rough framing inspection. This is an example of one of the various inspections a building official or inspector would complete. True or false? The building official is authorized to serve a notice of violation or order on the person responsible for erection, construction, alteration, extension repair, moving, removal, demolition, or occupancy of a building or structure in violation of the provisions of this code, or in violation of a permit or certificate issued under the provisions of this code. This question is discussing violations of the provisions of the code. Look for violation in the index, which will direct you to section R113 of the IRC. Additional keywords such as notice of violation will help you narrow down the possible subsection. Scan the section until you find subsection R113.2, Notice of Violation. Read the section of the code to determine if the statement is true or false. From the paragraph, you should be able to determine that the statement is true. Any building that contains one or two dwelling units used, intended, or designed to be built, used, rented, leased, let, or hired out to be occupied, or that are occupied for living purposes. This type of question is a definition. By using the keyword dwelling units, you will find the definition for dwelling units is located in R202. In Chapter 2, you will notice a few definitions which have to do with dwelling units. Reread the question to remind yourself of the definition you are looking for. You should recognize the phrase, any building that contains one or two dwelling units, in the definition for dwelling. Any building that contains one or two dwelling units used, intended, or designed to be built, used, rented, leased, let, or hired out to be occupied, or that are occupied for living purposes, is the definition of a dwelling. These pictures are examples of dwellings. One is an example of a single-family home, and the other is an example of a duplex, which is a two-family dwelling. An exterior wall of a home is 4.5 feet from a lot line. The fire rating of the wall is required to be blank hours. Here you are looking for the fire rating requirements of an exterior wall when it is close to a lot line. Start with the keyword exterior wall and look in the index. You will find exterior wall fire resistance rating is located in section R302.1. In section R302.1, it will reference you to table R302.1.1. Use this table to determine the fire separation required for the exterior wall. Start by locating the wall element in the first column. In our example, wall, you know from the question there is a fire rating, so choose Fire Resistance Rated and continue going right on the table, and you will find that 1 hour fire-rated construction is required for a wall that is less than 5 feet from the property line. The answer to the question is 1 hour per table R302.1.1. This figure demonstrates how to measure for the requirements of table R302.1.1. Here is an example of how a wall can be rated for exposure from both sides when it is less than 5 feet from a property line, as required in table R302.1.1. True or false? The window in this picture is required to be safety glazed. Start by using the keyword glazing, since you know you are looking for requirements for a safety glazed window. The index will lead you to R308 for glazing. As you read through this section of the code, you will come across R308.4 for hazardous locations, which includes R308.4.3, glazing in window. In this section, there are 4 requirements, and all 4 must be met to require a window to be safety glazed. Go through the items like a checklist. First, is the window over 9 square feet? 3 feet times 4 feet equals 12 square feet. So yes, the window is over 9 square feet. Second, is the bottom edge of glazing greater than 18 inches above the floor? The bottom edge is 1 foot 7 inches above the floor, which is greater than 18 inches. In the code, a window is required to be glazed when the glazing is less than 18 inches above the floor. Based on these measurements, the statement is false. The window is not required to be safety glazed. The clearance required at a water closet is blank inches from a wall and blank inches in front of the fixture. You know you are looking for clearances required at a water closet or toilet. The closest reference you will find in the index for these clearances is bath and shower space, which is located in R307. The first paragraph of the toilet, bath, and shower spaces section is R307.1, space required. This text will direct you to figure R307.1. The various illustrations in this figure list the clearances required at the various fixtures you will find in a bathroom. This illustration is based on figure R307.1 and shows the answer to be 15 inches from a wall and 21 inches in front of the fixture. The required stair riser height is blank inches and the tread depth is blank. The nosing on the treads shall not project less than blank inch and not more than blank inches, and shall be provided on stairways with solid risers. In this question, you know you are looking for the dimensions of stairs, including the required riser height, tread depth, and nosing measurement. Start by searching the index for stairs. The closest you will find is stairway, which directs you to section R311.7. This section starts by giving the width and headroom required for stairs, but you are also looking for riser and tread dimensions. As you scan the text, you will come to sections R311.7.5.1, riser, and R311.7.5.2, treads. These two sections should have the required information to answer the question. Section R311.7.5.1, risers, states that the required riser height shall not be more than 7 3/4 inches, and section R311.7.5.2, treads, states the tread depth shall not be less than 10 inches. Section R311.7.5.3 pertains to nosing requirements and tells you that nosing shall not be less than 3/4 of an inch, but no more than 1 1/4 inches. The answers to this question are found in this section and are 7 3/4 inches, 10 inches, 3/4 of an inch, and 1 1/4 inches. This illustration shows the stair geometry required by section R311.7.5.1, R311.7.5.2, and R311.7.5.3. Keep in mind, many states amend stair geometry to their preference, such as Pennsylvania, where the required dimensions are 8 1/4 inches riser height and 9 inches tread depth. A foundation for a home in Indiana with concrete basement walls that are exposed to the weather are required to have a minimum compressive strength of blank. This question is asking for the required compression strength of concrete that will be exposed to the weather if it is located in Indiana. Start by checking the index for concrete. Once you find concrete in the index, it lists compressive strength and refers you to section R402.2. Locate this section of the code and read the passage. It directs you to table R301.2.1. The footnotes of tables in the 2015 IRC often contain additional references for a given topic, including this table, which directs you to check figure R301.2.3. Figure R301.2.3 is an illustration of the continental United States and is for determining the weathering probability for concrete. Locate Indiana, since this state is referenced in the question, and match it to the legend on the left. The weathering probability of Indiana is listed as severe. After finding this information, go back to R402.2. Reread this code section. It directs you to another table, R402.2. Locate this table within the code. Table R402.2 is to determine the minimum compressive strength of concrete. The far left column is where you will determine the concrete construction. Use words within the question to make sure you are using the correct type and location of construction. The question states, concrete basement walls exposed to weather. This is located third down from the top. In the right-hand columns, you will see weathering potential. Remember that figure R301.2.3 listed the weathering potential as severe for the state of Indiana. Where the two meet is 3,000 psi, giving you the answer to the question. The required maximum anchor bolt spacing for wood sill plates is blank. The anchor bolts used must be a minimum of blank inches in diameter and extend a minimum of blank inches into concrete or grouted cells of concrete masonry units. You are looking for anchor bolt spacing requirements. Start in the index and search for anchor bolt. This will direct you to section R403.1.6 in Chapter 4. Within this section, you want to look specifically for wood sill plates with anchor bolts, since that is what is referenced in the question. In the third paragraph, you will find that the required anchor bolt spacing is 6 feet on center. This takes care of the first part of the question. Continue reading this paragraph and, if necessary, reread the question to remind yourself of the other information you need. The second part of the question is asking what the minimum diameter is of the anchor bolt and how far it has to extend into concrete or grouted cells of concrete masonry units. Again, in the third paragraph, you will find that half-inch diameter anchor bolts are required. and that they are to extend a minimum of 7 inches into the concrete or grouted cells of concrete masonry units. Now you have the complete answer. Anchor bolts are required to be 6 feet on center and a ½ inch diameter and extend at least 7 inches into concrete or grouted cells on block. This illustration shows minimum anchor bolt requirements. In section R403.1.6, it makes reference to other approved anchors. An example of this is shown. The strap shown embedded in the concrete could take the place of the anchor bolts if installed. Here is an example of actual construction showing a wood sill plate with anchor bolts per section R403.1.6. True or false? Sawn lumber shall be identified by a grade mark of an accredited lumber grading or inspection agency and have design values certified by an accreditation body that complies with DOC PS 20. In lieu of a grade mark, a certificate of acceptance issued by a lumber grading or inspection agency meeting the requirements of this section shall be accepted. This true or false question is talking about the grading requirements of lumber, so use the keyword lumber and search the index. When you find the word lumber, you will see grade immediately below it. Since multiple code sections are referenced, start with the first one listed, R502.1.1. Section R502.1.1 of the code is labeled sawn lumber. Since the question specifically mentions sawn lumber, you know this is the correct section. Once you read this section, you should determine that the answer is true. In the photos shown, these are examples of the grade markings required on lumber. Of the notches shown, which one or ones are in compliance with the code? Is the drilled hole size and location compliant? In the illustration, you can see notch A and notch B. Use the keyword notches to help find the code section in the index. Under notching in the index, you will see various options. In the previous illustration, the notches appeared to be in joists, so the first place to start would be section R502.8 for wood joists. Section R502.8 describes the requirements to be able to notch a joist. This section also references figure R502.8. This illustration shows the locations where notches can be placed as well as the size of the notch. Notice that notches cannot be placed in the middle third of a joist. There are 2 parts of compliance to verify. First, let's check the location of the notches. Notch A is located 9 13/16 inches from the end of the joist, which has an overall length of 9 feet. This notch is located in the outer third of the length of the joist, which is in compliance with the thirds rule in R502.8. The second notch, notch B, is located 5 feet 8 3/16 inches from the edge of the joist. This puts this notch in the middle third of the joist, which is not allowed per section R502.8. The second part to determine is whether or not the notch meets the requirements for the size, depth, and width of the notch. In order to determine allowable depth and width, you will need to know the depth of the joist. In this case, the depth of the joist is 9 1/4 inches. The allowable depth is determined by taking D, which is depth of joist, and dividing it by 6. We know the depth of the joist is 9 1/4 inches. 9.25 divided by 6 equals 1.54 inches for allowable depth. Notches A and B are 2 inches deep, so notch A does not comply with the required depth for a notch. The width is also determined by the depth of the joist, but this time D, depth of joist, is divided by 3. For this question, notch A is 5 inches wide and notch B is 4 inches wide. The allowable notch width is as follows. 9.25 divided by 3 equals roughly 3 inches. Neither A or B comply with the code. When a 2x6 exterior load-bearing wall has the top plate notched 3 inches for a plumbing pipe, what provisions are required? For this question, you need to find the requirements for notching a 2x6 load-bearing wall top plate. You can start by searching the index for the word notch. In the index below notch, you will find wood plates, which references section R602.6.1. Upon reading this code text, you will find that if a top plate is notched more than 50%, then a 16-gauge galvanized metal tie is required to be located across the notch and be at least 1.5 inches in width with 8 to 10 D nails on each side. This is the answer to the question. In this illustration, you will see a top plate is notched and a metal tie is installed as required by Section R602.6.1. This can also be found in Figure R602.6.1. The facing material of a structural insulated panel shall conform to Doc PS1 or blank, each having a minimum thickness of blank, and shall meet additional minimum properties with this code. All facing material shall be identified with a blank stamp or certificate of inspection issued by an approved agency. Based on this question, you know you are looking for requirements for the facing material of a SIP panel. Look for SIP panel in the index. This will lead you to Section R610. Skim Section R610 until you find R610.3.2, Facing. After reading this section, you should be able to fill in the blanks to the question. The answers to fill in the blanks would be Doc PS2, 7/16 inches, and grade. This picture shows a piece of OSB with the required grade stamp. You can see it lists the approved agency, grade stamp, conformity to Doc PS2, and the panel thickness. True or false? Craft-faced insulation is considered a Class 1 vapor retarder. This true or false question deals with what class of vapor retarder craft-faced insulation falls under. Using the keyword vapor retarder, search the index for the correct code section. The index will lead you to Section R702.7. Locate Section R702.7 and use additional words from the question to narrow it down to the exact code section, such as vapor retarder class, which is Section R702.7.2. In Section R702.7, you will find craft-faced fiberglass batt insulation is considered a Class 2 vapor barrier, not a Class 1, making the answer to this question false. These pictures are examples of craft-faced fiberglass batt insulation. Vinyl siding shall conform to requirements of blank and shall be certified and labeled as such by an approved quality control agency. This question is asking about the requirements vinyl siding must conform to. Vinyl siding is a good keyword to use for this question, but the closest you will find to vinyl siding in the index is simply siding. Start with the section listed for siding, which is R703, Exterior Coverings. Within R703, you will find subsection R703.11, Vinyl siding. This section states that vinyl siding shall be certified and labeled as conforming to ASTM D3679. This picture shows a box for vinyl siding which shows compliance with ASTM D3679. This information can be found on the box or on the paperwork inside the box. A 2x6 SPF No. 2 rafter, which will have a roof live load of 20 psf, dead load of 10 psf, and if the ceiling is not attached to rafters, it can span blank at 12 inches on center. You are looking for the allowable rafter span for a 2x6 SPF No. 2 when it has a live load of 20 psf at 12 inches on center. Using the keyword rafters in the index, you will find that requirements for rafters begin in Section R802. Start skimming this chapter to find a subsection that relates to rafter spans, and you will find Section R802.5. This section contains references to tables R802.5.1.1 through R802.5.1.8. Additional information is provided at the top of each table to help you narrow down which table you need. The question states that there is a roof live load of 20 psf and no ceiling attached. You will find this on table R802.5.1.1. You know you are trying to find the requirements for a 2x6 SPF No. 2 rafter at 12 inches on center. The far left column starts with the rafter spacing, so locate 12 inches on center. Next, you should know the species of the material, which is given as SPF No. 2. SPF No. 2 is Spruce Pine Fir No. 2, and this information is located in the next column. Then, toward the top of the table, you will see various member sizes. So locate 2x6 and go down to where it meets up with SPF number 2. The answer to this question, based on the table, is a 2x6 SPF number 2 can span 16 feet 3 inches, according to the design criteria from the question. This illustration shows how to accurately measure a rafter as it relates to Table R802.5.11. You measure the horizontal dimension of the rafter, not the diagonal dimension, to verify compliance with this table. When eave or cornice vents are installed, insulation shall not block the free flow of air. Not less than a blank inch space shall be provided between the insulation and the roof sheathing and at the location of the vent. This question is asking how much free space is needed between roof sheathing and insulation to allow for free airflow for roof ventilation. The best keyword choice here would be ventilation, which lists section R806 for roof ventilation. Once you have located section R806, use other keywords within the question, such as vent or insulation, and skim the text. You will find section R806.3, vent and insulation clearance, which tells you that the answer is 1. This illustration shows the required clearance and how to meet the requirement of the code. Typically, an air baffle will need to be installed at the heel of the truss. This picture shows an air baffle installed by the heel of the truss to allow for the required clearance of free airflow. Asphalt shingles shall be used only on roof slopes of blank units vertical in 12 units horizontal or greater. For roof slopes from blank units vertical in 12 units horizontal up to blank units vertical in 12 units horizontal, double underlayment applications are required in accordance with section R905.1.1. This question is asking for the required slope of asphalt shingles. Begin by using the keyword shingles in the index to find the code section. It lists section R905.2, asphalt shingles. Skim this section to find the subsection which has to do with the slope of the roof. You will come across section R905.2.2. which contains the answer to the question. The answer to the first blank is 2, the second is 2, and the third is 4. This illustration shows when a second layer of underlayment is required under asphalt shingles per section R905.2.2. True or false? Where an ice barrier is required, it shall extend from the lowest edge of all roof surfaces to a point not less than 24 inches inside the exterior wall line of the building. To answer this true or false question, you need to determine if an ice barrier must extend 24 inches inside the exterior wall. An obvious keyword is ice barrier, but this word is not in the index. Instead, use roof and coverings, since an ice barrier is a type of roof covering. This will lead you to section R905. Section R905 is pretty extensive and has multiple subsections. Skim through this section of the code and try to find the words ice barrier. You will find them under section R905.16.4 Underlayment Application. Read the section which starts with ice barrier. From reading this section, you will find the answer to the statement is true. This illustration shows how the ice barrier should be measured and how it extends inside the exterior wall. This picture shows an ice barrier being installed in a factory. You can see that one roll is not long enough to meet the 24-inch requirement, and a second roll will be required. Be sure to check that the installation instructions are followed for overlapping the material. Chimneys shall extend blank feet higher than any portion of a building within blank feet, but shall not be less than blank feet above highest point where chimney passes through the roof. In this question, you are looking for the required clearances around where a chimney terminates. Start by using the keyword chimney to find the code section in the index. Under chimney, you may see some options that may appear to be the code section you are looking for. But when you look at the question again, you can see you are looking for the section on termination, which is R1003.9. Once you read the text, you can determine the answers to fill in the blanks. The answers would be 2 for the first blank, 10 for the second, and the third would be 3. This illustration shows R1003.9 and the required measurements to meet the code requirement. True or false? This hearth meets the requirements of the IRC. This is asking you to take a look at the illustration and check to see if the hearth meets the requirements of the IRC. Start by checking the index for hearth, which will lead you to section R1001.9. After reading this section, you should realize this is not what you are looking for, but the section directly after that, R1001.10, Hearth Extension Dimensions, is. Reading section R1001.10 will help you determine the dimension requirements of the hearth and its extension. If the fireplace opening is greater than 6 square feet, the hearth extension must be at least 20 inches in front of and 12 inches to the side of the fireplace opening. Start by determining the square footage of the fireplace opening to see if it is over 6 square feet. You have 3 feet in width and 3 feet in height, which is 9 square feet. This exceeds the 6 square feet mentioned in R1001.10. This means the dimensions for the hearth are required to be 20 inches in front and 12 inches beyond the sides. Based on this information, the answer to this question is false. This picture shows a hearth which would meet the code requirement of R1001.10 of the IRC. This concludes the ICC training for your B1 exam preparation. Some key things to keep in mind when preparing for and taking the exam are: these exams are not about memorizing the answers, but being able to recall and find code sections quickly. In each question, keywords can be used to reference the index to try and find the code sections as quickly as possible. By using this technique, you will save yourself time rather than flipping through pages and pages of the code. All the questions are multiple choice. Try using the answers to help narrow down the possibilities. Some possible answers you should be able to tell are incorrect based on the question. Be careful of words such as shall not, may, or may not. These words could easily make a question true or false. Study and prepare. No matter how good you may think you know the codebook, always spend time preparing for these exams. This concludes the Preparing for the B1 Residential Inspector exam. Thank you for using the NTA Training video series.